This is our class meditation for Thursday, May 20th, 1954, here in the chapel on Sunrise Ranch. Last evening, we were giving some thought to the particular design by which control manifests into the range of the physical organism and material substance from the standpoint of the spirit. Now, I think we might wisely amplify that a little. From yesterday's class consideration, we remember the pattern that was portrayed in the master's ministry on the basis of what is popularly conceived to be Peter, James, and John. Now we would like to take note this morning of the basic fact that if it is understood, this particular arrangement is all right. If we recognize that Peter, James, and John, I can't even spell it, can I?
One?
Yeah, that's one spelling. Provide the proper pattern of recognition from the standpoint of the body, then all is well. But if in that pattern of perception Peter is conceived to be the point of focalization, and the mind does not perceive that which is above and beyond, we have confusion, and that is the state of the world consciousness with which you must deal. And it is because of this confusion that we do not have the adequate manifestation of spiritual power on earth. Our ministry, our service, attunements, can be of consequence only to the degree that there is the actuality of spiritual power reaching through us into the world. Without that, it turns into so many words and so many ideas which have no more meaning than a host of other words and ideas to be found in the world. Now, we recognize that John relates to spirit, James relates to mind, and Peter relates to the emotional realm, the feeling realm. We recognize that spirit, issuing from the supreme point of focalization in the invisible realm, must have a focalization in the outer realm. If there is not an overall focalization, the various members cannot of and by themselves come to focus. If the various members try to establish a focus of and by themselves, they fail. We could take any member of your body as such and assume that that member of and by itself, without regard to the head, could establish a completely satisfactory relationship to the realm of spirit, and we would find that it was not so. If the factors that are in the head, from the standpoint of the endocrine system, the nervous system, the brain, and all the rest of it, are not providing the point of focalization for the body as a whole, the member of the body cannot of and by itself establish a pattern of focalization directly with spirit. But the pattern of focalization is with respect to every member. And we are not to assume that merely because the head of the body provides the essential primary focalization, that the rest of the body is denied the reality of spirit. For it is not. And yet that particular false concept is one with which you will be working and contending in every sphere of service which has any relationship to spiritual things. Because the human being will constantly assume, regardless of what you say or do, there will be a tendency to constantly assume that a recognition of the primary focalization at the point of the head suggests that the members of the body are denied their own individual patterns of focalization and direct relationship in and with spirit, which is not the case at all. Now, if we recognize this pattern and do not put it, Peter, James, and John, as if this up above did not exist, we're all right. But the minute we assume that it's Peter, James, and John on this basis, we're wrong. From the standpoint of deity, the approach is John, James, and Peter. From the standpoint of the mass of humanity, which we call the body of mankind, and from the standpoint of the individual. For every person has, individually, the vibrational focalization factors of John, James, and Peter. Every single person on the face of the earth. But if that focalization is to have any meaning, individually, it must be established with respect to the whole body. Now, in the mass consciousness, we have it, Peter, James, and John, instead of Peter, James, and John. Now, if we realize the falsity of this concept and recognize that from the standpoint of deity, it's John, James, and Peter, and we clearly establish that pattern in consciousness, symbolizing these factors of being, we will have a basis of understanding, a basis of viewing, a basis of analyzing, which will stand us in good stead in every circumstance in life. If we break that pattern and try to establish it on some other basis, we will fail, regardless of who it is or how much effort is put forth. Now, we recognize that there are certain religions where the idea is you're not supposed to understand why. That's what you're taught. That's what you must believe. It's not a matter of the mind having any part to play, merely belief, feeling. It's not a matter of the recognition of the spirit as in direct relationship with the individual. It's a matter of feeling acceptance regardless of the working of the mind. And the mind is forced from babyhood to conform with that which is impressed upon consciousness through the feeling realm by reason of fear. If you don't do thus and so, you'll go to hell or purgatory or somewhere. You'll suffer. The devil will get you. So, not so much on the basis of love for God as the basis of fear of God. The emotional nature is used as the primary point of focalization. Concepts and ideas of every sort are implanted, not only in the field of religion, but in the field of discipline for small children. The bogeyman will get you. The policeman will come and get you. Somebody will come and get you. All of those ideas which are utterly atrocious in relationship to childish discipline for the childish mind and heart. So, we use the feeling nature. We do not say Peter has no place, but we recognize that mind is superior. But we also recognize that mind has within it that which is given particular focalization below it. Now, I understand from Jimmy that you've been studying something of the nervous system. The brain is the supreme focalization for the nervous system, isn't it? Now, suppose you have all of your ganglia, all of your different nerves, the spinal cord, etc., the focalization carried out to some organ or part, and suppose in the realm of your absolute focalization, the brain, you proceed to destroy the correlating brain cells. Will your ganglia and nerves function correctly? No. There then is an absolute principle which must be realized if we are going to understand. That which is carried out in a pattern of differentiation in the expanded expression must be, in essence, contained in the point of focalization. Now, if you will really remember that, it'll save you from many a pitfall. What does it mean here in practical application? That which is at the point of focalization which we speak of as John contains both James and Peter. That which is carried out to the point of differentiation from John to James carries the vibrational factors of Peter. The supreme point of focalization must contain the essence of all that is focalized and made manifest in the differentiation pattern in the expanded expression. So, you look at the nervous system and you have simply the differentiated expanded expression of the brain which reaches to all of the parts. Isn't that right? Doesn't that simplify your... You need to know more than that. But if you remember that, it'll help tremendously, because your nervous system is simply the differentiated aspects of the brain in an expanded expression connected with the parts or members of the body. Now, always that is true. This then follows. If we are going to think of James as relating to the mental plane, and he certainly does, we are not going to assume that the mental plane is differentiated from, separate from, unrelated to the emotional realm. The feeling nature is contained in the level of the true intellect. And there is one of the things that has not been generally recognized, known, or understood. Because the attempt has been made to establish the intellect on a mental basis without regard to the emotional factor which is inherent in the mind itself. And to do so establishes the mind as something which it is not. It's only a part of a thing functioning on a basis which tries to make it the whole thing. Now this relates to you as a person. The John aspect of your own being is the first out manifestation in the realm of yourself as a being of that which is of the invisible focalization of deity, which we speak of as your Father or your God being. Your centering in deity. Whatever name you wish to use is beside the point, as long as we do not get confused patterns. The John aspect of your being is the first beginning point of manifestation, the focalization of all else that is to manifest as spirit or by reason of spirit. As soon as that begins to be a fact in manifestation with you, and John is there, the John aspect begins to differentiate. And we have the James aspect of your being beginning to appear. But the James aspect does not function on a basis segregated from the emotional aspect in its own level. The Peter aspect is there. But with continued expressions of differentiation, we come to that which is primarily, dominantly, Peter. That relates to a very high degree to the subconscious range, the subconscious mind. Actually, while there might have to be some adjustments in your consciousness on the point, so do not establish it with too fixed a sphere of limitation, the Peter aspect of your being is the unconscious or subconscious realm of the feeling nature, which in turn correlates with mind. There is the aspect of mind which extends into Peter. And remember that. The subconscious mind, which is so primarily the emotional nature. Now, if out of Peter we receive an impulse which does not correlate with James, which is not controlled or directed by James, and it's allowed expression, action, it also disregards John and makes Peter the supreme point of focalization for your existence. And then you are subject to every wind that blows. There is no stability, there's uncertainty, there's fear, there's every sort of ill thing. Until we begin to realize that we do not deny Peter, as Peter denied the Lord, but we refuse to accept Peter as the supreme point of focalization in our being. And how is most of the control extended into the body? In the range of the automatic or subconscious. Every automatic function in your body relates to the subconscious, doesn't it? Does it? Certainly. All the digestive processes. Do you think, well, now I'll secrete a certain amount of this juice and a certain amount of that juice, and I'll make the peristaltic action in my stomach begin to move, and I'll extend the peristaltic action down the alimentary canal, and I'll do this and that, and you have to think it all out? No. So with most of the function that goes on in the body, practically all of it. Now in the realm of breathing, You can consciously change it a little bit. You can breathe deeply on a deliberate basis. You can develop a pattern of rhythmic control that becomes natural if the interference of the mind here in a borderline range. And the breathing process comes in that, doesn't it? To a degree, subconscious, to a degree, in the range of consciousness. So it's one of those functions that is on the borderline. If by reason of interference from the mind we have developed sloppy habits in breathing, the subconscious pattern is disrupted. So there we have something that ranges from the conscious mind into the subconscious mind, intentionally or otherwise, where there is a direct result. But how many of you can, by thinking, just willing that it be so, change the pulse beat of your heart? I want my heart to beat more rapidly. I want my heart to slow down. Now, if you select certain things to think about which you feel deeply, you may, by reason of feeling, begin to have an effect in the body through the subconscious, but it will not be by direct will or conscious intent. It will be indirect. If you love someone very dearly, perhaps you can think about that person and begin to get a little increased pulse rate. But that is not direct mental control of the organism, is it? It still goes through Peter. So, with the exception of the external patterns of action, walking, talking, movement of the hands, etc., we do not have very much control on the intellectual level of consciousness in relationship to the functions in the body. Now, the pattern of habits which we establish and maintain in the conscious range has its influence in the subconscious range. But the important thing is to realize that you are very fortunate that God so constructed you that your mind, as such, does not have direct influence and control in your body. Because if you had the interference of your intellect, you would perhaps say, well, I could improve this, yes, but you might work on it for 2 minutes, and then you would forget it for 2 hours, and it would be too late. You wouldn't be able to live. I'll venture there isn't a person here in this room that could live 24 hours if the coordination of his internal processes, even in their primary aspects, depended upon conscious control from the mind. Do you think you'd live 24 hours? I don't think you'd live an hour, do you? No, I don't. How brilliant you are. I wouldn't want it either. I'm pointing out, however, some basic factors which are vitally essential if we are going to learn how to live and how to serve others. Because Peter, the emotional nature, must not be allowed to take supreme control in the body, even though Peter is the direct means by which control is released in the body, influence made manifest. If there is anger, the release of adrenaline is intensified. a feeling. Now, if you just intellectually, without any feeling whatever, think, I'd like to have a little more adrenaline now. I'll make my glands secrete a little more adrenaline, squeeze out an extra drop. You think you could? But if you become angry, do you think you can keep it from squeezing out an extra drop? No. The control into the body is primarily through Peter, into the realm of form. And that is not limited to you as a person. That applies to the whole mass of mankind. Now, if this control level be used wrongly, we call it black magic. If it is used correctly, we call it white magic. Have you gotten into that at all? Well, you've got a lot of consideration in that field. I won't spoil it by talking about it. That's coming up. But the point is that the right use at this level is of the divine design, the magic of living, of beauty, of love, and of life. The wrong use at this level results in the distortion patterns in the world, which are, in fact, elements of black magic. Now, James has the ability, by reason of the essences which are differentiated into manifestation as Peter. Not Peter at this level, please remember. It is not Peter up here, it's James. But the elements in James differentiated as Peter are present in James, and by reason of the factors of intellect and feeling perception, intellectual and feeling perception, we have the means at our command by which we may become acquainted with and learn to understand John. That is our purpose here in this class. And until the human being establishes a pattern of right relationship with John, the John aspect of his own being, he cannot comprehend or become aware of or know in any way, shape, or form his own Lord, his own God being, or en masse, the Lord of Lords. We can have all kinds of ideas about, concepts of every sort, and the world is full of them. But if you cut the nerves between the head and the body, the fact that the nerves are in the body will not permit the normal function. And it's just as true in relationship to mankind as a whole as it is true in relationship to you as a person. Now, in John, the John aspect of your own being, what do we have? The negative focalization of the positive aspect in the invisible realm, in the range of focalization. Simply a means by which the inner positive or invisible focalization is transferred to the realm of outer form. A connecting link, if you please. And if we attempt to use two pieces of chain without a connecting link, will it work? You have to get them tied together if you need the whole chain. And here you do. the invisible part of the chain and the visible part. And if there is a break at the level where invisible things are supposed to begin to be visible, what is going to happen? The visible chain will be weak and of no value. It will not hold you up. So, the John aspect of your own being is the connecting link. Now, human beings try to understand the John aspect one way or another, to whatever degree it's comprehended, without correct function in relationship to Peter and James. And it will not work. Try as you will. You're going to let Peter be the control point in your being, and then learn to understand John. It won't work. Because if Peter is the control point, you are being controlled by external things, by circumstances, what people say and do, and what you think they feel, what you think their attitudes to be when you don't know. Controlled by all these things. And then you're a slave, pure and simple. And it is from that slavery that human beings are to be liberated. And the moment any human being is liberated from that slavery, he or she begins to be a son or daughter of God. But that slavery is there whether we like to admit it or not. And no matter what we do about it, without regard to James and John, there is no liberation. And faith in Peter, hoping to achieve that liberation, will not achieve it. No matter how you struggle, what method you use, you can go to the yogic philosophies of the Orient or of India or any idea of developing willpower and mental ability in the Occident that you want to, and it won't work. You can get so far and you run into a blank wall. Human beings everywhere, by the million, are up against that blank wall. The only excuse we have for being a separate or distinct organization is to provide something which is not provided by other organizations. The means by which the individual as a person and the mass body of mankind as a whole may begin to have an awareness of the John aspect of being, so that there may be true comprehension of what we might call the Jesus aspect of being, the supreme point of focalization for the whole. The Lord of Lords and King of Kings. And the focalization of deity to us was made manifest in the form of the body of the man who was known as Jesus. But that Jesus aspect of being, now invisible, can have no real or true meaning except by the means which he himself outlined. And it always works. It's absolute, whether anyone likes it or not. Millions have destroyed themselves trying to make some other method work, and it will not. There's just one way. And the more quickly we come to that absolute conclusion and realization, the better for us. The less time and energy will be wasted, the sooner we will be out of the abyss of nothingness into the realms of joy and peace. Now then, if we are going to comprehend James, we must start on the right basis. The popular idea is to judge all things mental on the basis of the way you feel about it. You're going to let Peter pass on everything that James says. I don't like that idea, so I reject it. I like this idea, so I accept it, the way I feel about it. I am letting Peter determine what is true or not true with respect to what James says. And it's a snare and a delusion. If the way you feel about it is going to determine what you believe, you will never be a true server. Period. What happens if we have a certain feeling, shall we call it prejudice, a certain feeling of aversion toward some idea or something that we think is an idea, and we refuse to examine it because we have this feeling? We're going to remain in ignorance. But if, regardless of how we feel about it, we will examine what James presents with an open mind, what do we find? That when we see the truth, the old prejudice of averse feeling falls away. We don't feel the same way about it anymore, because we begin to feel on the basis of truth, not on the basis of all the things that have been pounded into us since our babyhood. And there's the difference between slavery and liberation into manhood and womanhood. If a person continues to be subject to his aversions, to his prejudices, to what he likes and does not like, he will be a slave till his dying day, a slave of things not controlled. But if he will learn to recognize that what you feel about it is absolutely beside the point, it should not be allowed to have any weight at all. You may say, I like this idea so much I cannot give it up. I have too strong a feeling about it. You're deluding yourself. If you say, I have too strong a feeling against that idea to accept it, you're deluding yourself. Your way you feel will follow your intellectual acceptance of truth once you see it and accept it. And there is no other way which leads to mastery or liberation. Try as you will. What you feel about it is beside the point. And the sooner you reach the point of absolute conviction in yourself, where you will say and mean, what I feel about this or that is beside the point. It is not going to control me. My likes and dislikes are no longer going to be in control. I am going to examine everything from the standpoint of the mind without adverse influence from Peter. I'm going to examine, I'm going to analyze, I'm going to learn to think, and I'm going to learn to let my mind, conscious and subconscious, function under the control of the Spirit of God. Now, this dual aspect of mind is contained in James, as we noted a while ago, and it is not by pure intellect that you learn to see and understand John. There is a feeling perception there. But this feeling perception that works from James to John cannot work as long as Peter is in control. You can say, well, I'm supposed to use my feeling perception. Of course you are. But as long as you are a slave, reacting this way and that to every circumstance that arises, you are unstable. And the Lord is not in control. When you begin to use this feeling perception that arises out of James in relationship to John, his brother, isn't that right? In relationship to John, his brother, it will not be because Peter is saying, I reject that because I don't like it. I accept this because I like it. But there is feeling perception there. And if you try to do it on a coldly intellectual basis, logic and reason alone, you think you will arrive? No. You must use both of these aspects of perception as they are contained in James. And when you do, you will find that what you perceive by feeling never violates logic and reason. You cannot, by logic and reason, reach the point of comprehending John. It is utterly impossible. Though millions have tried it, not one has ever succeeded. It's a waste of time. But when you learn to use the true perceptive qualities of James, beginning to understand John, you will find that that which is perceived through the feeling aspect never violates logic or reason, or what we might call the intellectual aspect of your being. And if you perceive something that appears to violate, what are you going to do? Jump to the conclusion, well, now I don't like this. I'm going to put it all aside. No. If you're afraid of it, you cannot approach close enough to it to examine it. If we had a rattlesnake out here in the yard, and you wanted to really examine that rattlesnake, you would want to get close to it, but you would want him under control first. Dead or alive. So, you are not going to get close enough to anything to understand it if you are afraid of it. There must be control. If you're afraid to examine any point which appears, it means that you have no faith in your own stability. Isn't that true? And you need to develop faith in your own stability. Learn to examine. Then, if what you thought you saw turns out to be something a little different, you thought it was this way, and it really wasn't. It was a different form, different factors. And as soon as you see it as it really is, you have no rejection of it, and acceptance. You no longer feel against it. And you have reached a point where you know the truth, and the truth has set you free from that which you feared. And it has not violated logic or reason. Now, the point I wish to re-emphasize here is that until you reach a point of right attitude toward Peter, try as you may, you cannot begin to use the true perceptive faculties of James. And the feeling nature is going to be mixed up. And you will not reach a point where you are controlled by the Spirit of God. Why have I, over this period of years here, been so patient with all the people here? Why have I been patient with you since your arrival? Have you all functioned in perfection? I wouldn't say so. But I didn't come around browbeating you and scolding you and finding fault with you, did I? If I had to give a little direction, well and good. But none of that if I didn't have to. Why was I patient with you? Because I knew that each and every one of you, perhaps inadvertently, but nevertheless certainly, were under the control and domination of Peter. Regardless of what you thought in your mind, regardless of what you thought you believed, or anything else. Peter was too much in control to permit you to know the truth. The Master did not say, "And ye shall know how you feel, and your feelings will make you free." He did say, "And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." And how are you going to know the truth? By the perceptive faculties of James in the intellectual level. For only so can you begin to comprehend John and begin to realize that which John represents or makes possible of manifestation in the realm of form. This means that not by rule and regulation, not by arbitrary attitude on my part, but by reason of your own opportunity to observe the truth, you have reached a point where there must be less subjection to Peter on your part. You may think, well, I'm going to lose something good. Oh, no, you won't. No, you will find things that are lovely and beautiful and real. The blessings which God would bestow upon you. Nothing worthwhile will be taken away. Only the thorns that irritate. Only the ill conditions that make one suffer. Only that which spoils will be taken away. But there is still, right here, on Sunrise Ranch, not limited to you members of this class, but definitely including you, there is still too much subjection to Peter in your daily function to permit you to make the kind of progress you can make if you will remember these things. And if you will be sensible and remember that here there is understanding one of another, but refuse to be blinded by Peter. Refuse to accept the way you feel about anything as conclusive. What you like or do not like. Do not let it be conclusive. Move to the realm of truth and function on the basis of James and you will find that John, his brother, is near at hand. And all